sure that's fine. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's take it away.
Welcome back to Seattle Sucks, the podcast about hating the city we love. And today is a very special episode, an in memoriam for Colin Teal, who is the first American casualty of the coronavirus.
Colin was a husband, a father, a friend, and a coder. And he was the best of us.
He was a teetotaler, which makes it ironic that he would die of the coronavirus having drank Corona.
Yeah, that is what is on everybody's mind today, the injustice of exactly that. He will be missed. The podcast, we haven't really decided if we're going to continue on after this remembrance episode, but suffice to say that if we do continue, we will use his death and cash in on the sympathy.
Well, I just watched this movie called Lords of Chaos, and if one thing it's taught me, it's that any unfortunate death you should definitely cash in on for publicity. But we're hoping to get Colin's photo to the Academy in time for the in memoriam section of this year's Oscars.
Yes, this year's podcasting Oscars.
But for now, I think we should soldier on. That's what Colin would have wanted.
Okay, well, we will now, Brian, if you'll just take one end of this flag. All
right, I got
probably. Here, you take the stars because I learned how to do this in the Boy Scouts, so you pretty much just have to follow my lead.
All right. I was in the Boy Scouts too, but whatever.
Okay, so let's just begin here.
All
Is this the thing where they fold the flag and like keep on folding it like it's a sleeping bag or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and you put like a small kitty inside it at the end.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
There's a prize inside for the family to find later if they ever accidentally unravel it.
There you go. That's a fun fact for anybody that's got one of those hanging on a mantle somewhere.
Yeah, everyone take them down, pull it out of the frame, and find the fortune inside. It's like a fortune cookie. That's why it's shaped like that.
It's actually what National Treasure 3 is about.
Steal your relative's prized rolled up flag from their grandpa or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's the right thing to do.
Bust it open, learn your future. Some of them have cash.
Some of you might have noticed from Greg's distant voice that even though Colin has the coronavirus, and I'm sure to fall next, Greg has been sent to an undisclosed location as the podcast's lone survivor. And we're also being joined by Justin Roll, who is a Seattle DSA member, a Bernie Soldier of Fortune in Iowa, and most importantly, a Seattle Sucks patron, a blessed patron.
Yep.
Yes.
I basically paid them money to get on this show. I bribed people. You'll find out later on.
If you check the statistics, that is the surest way to get on Seattle Sucks.
I'll say it works every time.
We should also note that Justin is himself a coder. So Justin, can you tell us, from your particular constituent group, how is the coding community taking the death of Colin Teal?
They're very concerned. Maybe two of them know who he is, I would say.
Okay, that's great. That's perfect. So I am in an undisclosed location in Iowa, an undisclosed like full on hot couch house. Justin can tell you about this place because he just left. He just flew back
It's
to
real
Seattle,
hot.
but he was here the last few
It's wet.
days. And it's great. Like, it has this from the outside, this place, which, Cassidy and Melissa, who are out here working on the Bernie campaign, generously let us stay at. And, from the outside, it's got this like stately neo-colonial sorority vibe. But you step inside and it turns out to be just like an ugly 70s split entry that's had some weird remodels, and is like sporting a sort of Airbnb serious hot couch furnishing.
It's not Cassidy and Melissa's fault. It's the Airbnb owner who's probably a hot couch guy as a youth, but now is a hot couch landlord.
Well, I mean, isn't the landlord just trying to, serve the public, give them what they want? So in a way, isn't it y'all's fault?
Yeah, you're right. We asked for hot couches everywhere we go. So, I mean, it was us who, let's just say we're leaning into it, because the DVD menu for Office Space has now been up on the TV for 24 hours. And it's not the first DVD menu to just loop for days while we've been here. So, yeah. The bathroom in the basement has like real like Sochi Olympics vibes. There's this like kind of opulent like shower stall that has like an arc of glass that you're supposed to like, and like a double sliding curved doors that you step in, but like it's in the middle of this very weirdly shaped, oddly and badly constructed place where like the towel rack was obviously once present in the wall and just fell out at some point and disappeared, and like there's other like weird oddities in the construction.
The toilet roll
And
thing was broken.
What's the stray dog situation? By the way, this also sounds like my house, but what's the stray dog situation like?
No, there's a not stray dog in the house. His name is Sully. He's pretty nice, but
After Sully
it's too
Sullenberger?
cold. All the I assumed. I've just assumed that this whole time. But I the other thing is like, I've been actually eschewing like fast food and actually trying to like cook and like stay healthy on this trip. But I did break down and buy and go to get a burger and fries last night. I was like, okay, this will be my one night. And let me just say, like, between that and like this like Sochi vibes toilet, like I might be voting for Trump this year. Like it took a few flushes. That's all I'm saying.
Do you understand the appeal of Slipknot now?
Yeah, like I get like the plight of the like middle American Trump voter.
Didn't Slipknot play at the Democratic like primary Iowa State Fair? Are they necessarily a Trump band?
I think Slipknot are as of yet unaffiliated, but we're looking for them to come around.
Gotcha.
Well, speaking of affiliations, Greg and Justin, now that Bernie has officially endorsed everything that Joe Rogan has ever said, did you guys go to the MMA gyms so that they could rise up and take to the streets?
Yeah, that's obviously what we're focusing on when we're canvassing. No, we have been out there though. I mean, in all seriousness, like we're basically part of like an army of volunteers who are like busting down doors.
Bernie's shock troops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Like Bernie campaign super soldiers just like tromping through the snow. Well, so like we're out here just what's different about this campaign, I mean, this is something I literally get into even with people whose doors I knock on, is like Bernie has a different theory of change that is than the traditional entrenched establishment Democratic Party, and that is that we need to build mass movements of working people if we're going to have change, and that includes putting Bernie in the White House. And to that effect, this campaign is out here knocking on people's doors who have never caucused, who never voted, much less caucused. And I think that is, I mean, that would sound obvious like any other place, but I would have thought, I mean, this is, I guess, a little naive, but like, I get that half of America, like, this is a basic thing we need to understand about our current politics in the 2016 election, is that half of Americans as eligible voters did not vote in 2016.
Yeah, we should not shame those people either.
Yeah. When you're given nothing to vote for, why should you vote? I mean, the non-voter's been right most elections.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And they didn't have, they have not been brought into this process. And but still, I naively thought that in Iowa, even though I'm sure obviously only a relatively small portion of the population shows up to caucus, I guess in my mind I imagined that literally everyone in Iowa would have some familiarity with the caucus as an institution, because for so many decades it has been this feature of American presidential races, particularly in the Democratic Party, such that every, mostly 4, sometimes 8 years, I mean, every 4 years there is at least one party is caucusing here, but
I think people in Des Moines are pretty familiar with it, but as you get out to whatever place we were, Webster City, Iowa Falls, Hampton, I think that's
you mean all the places that people legitimately don't give a shit about.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's get into this a little bit. So when you guys you guys knocked on a lot of doors, when you knocked on people who are non-voters' doors, what were they responding to?
They were just basically saying hey, I'm not, political. I've never voted. I've never, caucused. I don't think, whoever wins such and such election, it's not going to really change my life. And so, I just don't really want to do it.
Yeah. You hear people say, well, there's two levels of disconnection here. There's people who are like, oh, it's not my thing, but are aware that the caucus is taking place because, again, it's this institution where people descend on the state every 4 to 8 years. And okay, this says I am reconnected now. Fuck.
We hear you.
Where people you've been fine the whole time.
Okay, where people descend on the state every 4 to 8 years, and they're like, oh, it's not my thing, but they get it. They may be annoyed that they're getting all these mailers and people are knocking on their door. But there's a whole other level of disconnection that it's weird to admit, it has actually surprised me, that there are a ton of people who you talk to them and they're like, what's a caucus? That sounds kind of familiar, and are just surprised that, and no one's ever even knocked on their door, literally in Iowa, this place where that kicks off the Democratic fucking nomination process every 4 to 8 fucking years, that we say is so fucking important, that we imagine in all our stupid fucking politics movies, people canvassing the whole state. And even here, even in this relatively unpopulous place that matters so much, tons of fucking people have just not even been asked to participate ever.
Yeah.
There were people that liked Bernie, but didn't really know what the fuck a caucus was. They knew he was running for president. There would be some election sometime, but they were like, caucus? When's that? What's that? What do I have to do?
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, I think that's my question. I kind of want to get into what appealed to people, depending on kind of what their initial stance was. So for the non-voter, when you're kind of pitching Bernie to him, what sounded good to him?
I would say just that, a lot of politicians, haven't really done anything for you. They've made, certain promises, but nothing's, really changed. I just kind of argue that Bernie's a different kind of politician. He's a lifelong independent. He's got a movement behind him. 1 million people signed up to volunteer. Who knows what the actual amount of actual people on the ground is? But he's got the most volunteers. We all know it. He's got the most individual contributions from working people, averaging $18 an hour. No billionaires are contributing to his campaign. So this is something different. He's actually offering you something. And, nobody really, I mean, a lot of people don't really like Trump. And if you want to beat Trump, well, who's better to beat Trump than the guy with the most volunteers and the biggest, fired up base?
Justin, tell us, like, in your experience, what were people's responses to the actual, like, policy stuff? Like, these people we're talking about, because again, like, we've also canvassed in Des Moines and West Des Moines, where it's like, Democrat, liberal professionals who know, who have opinions on the race. But like, since we're talking about like people out up north where we were yesterday, like, yeah, what is people's what were the responses you got to however you described Medicare for all, or the education plan, or the Green New Deal, or generally the economics of everything, or whatever? What did you hit and what was the reaction?
Gotcha. I mean, like, Medicare for all is an easy one because, a lot of people don't have health insurance. So, I mean, it's easy enough to just like pitch your own story. Like I might say, hey, I didn't have health insurance when I went back to school later in life, and that sucked. I didn't go to the dentist for like 5 years. And when I went back, that was super painful. We all probably have friends that, have had some, injury or operation that came out of the blue. For example, I would pitch that my best friend, had his appendix out. And then 2 years later, he had his gallbladder out, and he had no fucking health insurance. And then he's like $60,000 in debt. His credit is screwed. And yeah, things are just really hard. And pretty much everybody can relate to that or has, some kind of similar story. And it's like, damn, why don't we have, you can just say, damn, why don't we just have health insurance for everyone? Like, countries do it. It's not that hard.
Yeah, and I mean, what is their reaction to that? Like, what do you get from people when you lay that stuff down? Like, describe the reactions you're hearing to that.
Well, they're kind of just like, shit, yeah, like, I work, like one person was like, yeah, I work, 2 part-time jobs and I don't have, health insurance. I would love to be able to just like go to the doctor. And then the other thing in Iowa is, I don't know how exactly this works, but I think the Medicaid there is pretty shitty, basically. There aren't that many of these rural hospitals or like providers or whatever that actually take Medicaid. So it's like that much worse for people, that don't have much money.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a story sort of nationwide of these rural hospitals sort of closing down because now that they have this sort of, model of, put yourself in locations with high income people, milk them for all you can, fuck everybody else, which opens up a lot of avenues to go into what I think most Democrats would call Trump country or whatever, to actually go recruit people. Now, when you did bring up, health insurance and healthcare, did the people get furious with you and tell you how much they love their employer plan?
Fuck no, but literally nobody said that, and nobody will ever say that.
Oh, that's weird, because on Twitter I hear that is a beloved thing that people have as their employer
Zero
plan.
people said they were worried about losing their private insurance. They were like, "Oh, my private insurance! I need it. Need to hold on to it."
To anyone who actually has private insurance out here, like, they think of that as something they pay a lot of fucking money for. So it's like, even, I swear to God, even in like the more affluent neighborhoods of like West Des Moines that I knocked a bunch of because I'm good at talking to like rich white people. Even we were doing mostly trying to knock like either likely Sanders or undecided people, but even those people, the same as people who had less contact with and were like more new to the process and had less information. Basically when you say we as the richest country in the world should have healthcare free at the point of service, no fees, blah blah blah, everyone's pretty much just like, yeah, obviously. Like, it's just like, well, yeah, I mean, you don't have to go into the fact that we're the only country, major economy that doesn't do this. You don't have to go into a lot of bullshit. It's like pretty much like everybody gets it. They're like, yeah, I mean, obviously there's no other way for me to have or everyone to have healthcare.
Yeah. And it's an easy sell. And, and I know our lists were mostly trying to target Bernie voters, but if you're knocking doors in, working class neighborhood, especially with apartments, people move around a lot. So oftentimes you're not actually talking to the person you're targeting, but I mean, whether they're, listed as a Bernie supporter or not, the same techniques, still apply. People, want the same things. And a lot of people like Bernie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And like, I mean, yeah, healthcare is such like an obvious winning issue, right? I mean, who's against it, right? Like, oh no, I hate going to the doctor. Like,
Yeah.
I love going bankrupt.
Yeah. And the thing I would also say that's important is like pitching, your own material, stake in this. So like I would pitch, that I had 50K in student loans. That's why I like Bernie. I want student loans to get paid off. And then, depending on where you're knocking, the parent might be like, oh yeah, my kid has 200,000 in student loans. And I'm like, oh fuck, I can't even talk. Or I might talk about, I went like, 4 or 5 years without health insurance. And they would say, hey, I'm a cancer survivor and I didn't have health insurance. I'm probably like never going to pay off this fucking bill.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a couple other types of people that you guys ran into that I definitely need to hear about, which is one we mentioned off air that you ran into some true Klobuchar heads. And I'm very excited to hear what that was like.
I feel like the Klobuchar heads kind of were just like, yeah, I like Amy, like it seemed like more like a Midwest kind of Midwestern identity thing where they like, they like how she talks and her general like attitude, but they wouldn't really like give me that much more. I did get one or two like, I kind of like Bernie, but how's he going to pay for these things? By of course you have a response. Tax the rich, tax billionaires, tax Bill Gates, tax Jeff Bezos, et cetera, and they don't really have a response to that. But I don't totally know if persuasion works too well on those people. We're kind of we're kind of just hoping that maybe if you say something good about Bernie to these Klobuchar or Mayor Pete people and they get eliminated in the first round of caucusing, they're below the 15% threshold or whatever, maybe they'll have Bernie as their second choice.
Well, yeah, and the Mayor Pete people, hopefully it'll be raining on the caucus day, and that'll short their circuitry, and they won't be able to make it. So
I actually knocked on the doors of some Mayor Pete field directors, and it was very obvious because they were like some 20-something white kids like living in this like weird rural area of Iowa. Yeah, it's very, very apparent.
Did you meet any Amesons for Amy, Greg?
I didn't run into any Klobuchar people. I remember Justin saying that he didn't really run into any Warren people ever. I definitely did in West Des Moines, where I was knocking in some of the days where I was knocking, like I said, more like affluent professional types. And there's a lot of people who were like, yeah, I mean, I like Bernie. He's my second choice, but we decided to go for Warren. A lot of these people said like, yeah, we caucused for Bernie in 2016. But blah, 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 it usually, people usually would say they're undecided, but we're, probably going for Warren. And, it came down to like kind of what you would think, like an electability thing. Like, these are people who are like, vaguely, somewhat occasionally tuned into like the New York Times or MSNBC or something, and they're like, yeah, gosh, Bernie just can't get elected out here in America, and that's really easy to pick apart. Like, it's incredibly easy to take that down, and
Yeah.
I think with the handful of those people that I talked to, like, probably are feel much like better about caucusing for Bernie after you explain to them that actually he's the most popular politician in America, and he's the only one who's going to be Trump. The fact that it's now being talked about that his poll numbers are going up is going to reinforce that point, I think. And but listen, I also ran into out in rural areas. I ran into various manner of Trump voter.
Yeah, that's the one I want to get to.
Yeah.
I want to know how the Trump voters went.
So, sometimes you knock on a door again, someone's moved, or it's like some, 19-year-old contact name that's obviously some kid who's at college, and you get their parents, reminiscent of knocking for Obama in Texas in 08.
Did you get a lot of parents who would say their kid had like moved to Germany or like France or like Switzerland or something? Like, I couldn't tell whether the parents were like lying to me and didn't want to talk to me, or their kids had actually moved.
Or that's their like the way they like tell you that they disowned their like their gay child or something. They're like,
well, that's why their kid doesn't come home for Thanksgiving anymore, is because they've moved to Germany.
Oh fuck yeah, that's even better. Like, the kid is telling them, yeah, geez, I just can't come home across an ocean for Thanksgiving, when they really live like the next county over. That's fucking hilarious. Less dark than my theory, but both are plausible. I don't know. You know what? So the Trump voter scenario is very gosh, I guess how else to say it, but it's exactly like you would think. There's a couple different kind of Trump voters. There's this one door I knocked on that had like a cop truck outside, and this like short king with a bad haircut opened the door and's like, "No, I support Donald Trump. You can save your time." This is like a real chud, like a real honest to God fucking cop chud. And I got some parents who were of kids who weren't there, who were also like that, like full on like, I support Donald Trump, and like they have like a shit kicker accent that I've heard nowhere else in Iowa for some reason.
Yeah.
Like just like
that universal like Southern accent, you get it sometimes like outside of King County in Washington.
Yeah. It's just a culturally affected shithead.
Yeah. It's like, you're not from the South, you know that, right? Like,
yeah,
this isn't the South.
like,
I'm from there. I know.
No, I signal that I'm fucking stupid.
Yeah, and I drove a long way to get here.
And the thing is, like, I think it really just, it's so funny how it all basically just reinforces, sort of like highlights all the bullshit that was spun to explain the 2016 election, and kind of reinforces the sort of standard left take. There are these people They're called Republicans. They voted for Trump, and they're racist shithead chuds, um and they love it. And there's at least some other people out there who are like super low information, very uh disconnected, but are like, yeah, I voted for Trump, but I didn't want to vote for Hillary Clinton. I don't really like Trump, but and these people are probably not super like aware of their own personal racial bias, or their like participation in and acquiescence of the structural white supremacy around them. But uh you can these are essentially disconnected people who, like, I'm talking about a couple of people I met. One was a nurse, middle-aged woman in an apartment, who said she voted for Trump, doesn't like Democrats. And um once you get past that, you you can make the same pitch on everything. Like, even though this person had been poisoned by Fox News about like socialized medicine, literally, and like how Canadians hate their healthcare so much, um, you can still make all the pitch and run through like what Medicare for all would mean and why we can do it. And it's just too appealing to not at least register on some level. Now, that doesn't mean this woman's going to come out and caucus for Donald Trump. I don't know, but I mean for Bernie Sanders. But you can have these same conversations and they resonate. Now, we're not trying at this point to convert Trump voters. It's just sometimes you show up at their door by mistake. But it just goes to show that, like, basically everyone out there in America is just completely fucking left behind. And it's easy enough for someone like a racist demagogue like Donald Trump to come along and be the only one trying to make sense of that.
And
But
if people say they don't like, Democrats, guess who's not a Democrat? Bernie Sanders. Guess who's been, an independent for, 30 or 40 years. And, nothing would piss Democrats off more than if Bernie Sanders won the Iowa caucus and won the Democratic primary. They love that. I mean,
Yeah.
it at least gets like a smile or a chuckle. Like, again, they're probably not going to caucus for Bernie Sanders, but you're at least kind of planting a seed for later on.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people like online get it wrong when they say like people don't understand that like Bernie not being a Democrat is part of his appeal. I think that like the sort of media class and certainly people in the DNC get that that's his appeal, and that's what they hate about him, right? Like, they see their own like lack of enthusiasm, like that people hate them, right? Like they hate having to look at that.
Well, and they put so much time into this, institution that is the Democratic Party. And I mean, all of their politics are outdated and they kind of know it, but they're, fighting against it. It's kind of their like last gasp. It makes them mad.
Yeah, too far in.
Mad. But I think, as fun as it is maybe to like experiment with trying to sway these like disaffected low information Trump voters, at the end of the day, like, what what I'm really telling to the actual like left Democrats out there who are undecided, or like Warren Bernie people, is an electability argument that in which I highlight Bernie's theory of change about mass movements, and say, like, we don't need to actually appeal to the Trump voter, like, because this is what you're hearing in on MSNBC and the New York Times and the Atlantic. Like, how are we going to appeal to um these moderate Republicans who voted for Trump and bring them over to the Democratic side? And as much as possible as it might be to do that to a few of them, And as fun as it might be to, have that win with one person, we don't need them. We don't need them. We can tell everyone in America who voted for Trump to fuck off, and we can stop taking orders from them because they actually represent a small part of this country. And what we're
Yeah.
actually concentrating on here in Iowa is talking to people who are just completely out of the system, and that's what's working. And so this brings us to like the polls and what's going to go down here. I don't believe in jinxes. Like there is an army of people here. We are talking to people and have commitments to caucus from people who've never participated, which
Gotta
means
get those C2Cs,
yeah, exactly.
That's the most important thing. They're like points. They're like volunteer points.
Yeah, exactly. We can cash them in for prizes.
If you don't
The
know, like the
oh,
Bernie campaign kind of like their kind of gold standard is you get somebody to fill out this card that says like, hey, I will commit to caucusing, in the Iowa caucus, and maybe I'll bring my friends, etc. I will like plan my day around it. They give you their contact information. That way, the
we can
field
hound them.
organizers can hound them. Yeah, and the field organizers can figure out like, oh, I have this many people in this precinct. I have this many people in that precinct, and I can predict a good chance of a win here.
Yeah, and so because we know that we're doing that, we know that a lot of these people are people who've never voted or caucused, which means they are absolutely not likely caucusers, which means they're not even fucking counted in the polls that are now showing as of like yesterday. I mean, for the last week, Bernie's been up in some polls. I'm just now looking at the Real Clear average here, and as of yesterday, he's up over Biden by like 3 points, and trending up. And his main competitors, Biden, hilariously Buttigieg, and Warren, are all going down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be
I
a
don't.
bigger margin than that. I guarantee it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we know that we're going to continue. I'm going to be here till the end. I'm going to be, observing a caucus actually for the campaign, on Monday, and I know that there's more people. Like there's a ton of out of state volunteers and local volunteers right now caucusing. We knocked on. Gosh, what did somebody say? How many
I
thousands
was doing
short
around
of?
100 a day myself. I think the campaign total in Iowa was saying they were knocking on 2 doors a minute. And
Yeah.
if you do the math on that, that's a lot of doors in a day.
Yeah, it was some like in the hundreds of thousands this
Yeah.
weekend, like over 100,000 or something. And and what we know is there's way more people coming in for the last push, like the last 5 days. We know it's not going to stop. Basically, you can toss out all the polls for the last year because no one's been paying attention. Not here in Iowa, certainly, in most of the country.
And they
That's true.
decide way late. Like a lot of people decide like right at the end. Like
Oh yeah, absolutely.
so many people at least say they're undecided. Like who knows if they're telling the truth and they don't want to tell
Well,
you they're voting for fucking Biden or something. But
Well, they probably are undecided in the sense that they're living their lives, and
yeah,
as the undecided voter, or as the people who don't vote tell you, doesn't impact my life one way or
yeah,
another, right?
yeah, yeah.
And they're kind of doing that, but it has been like lately, I think, since people have been on the ground, like actually going out to people. I mean, Bernie's surged, comically, Amy Klobuchar has surged, and everybody else has tanked. And I gotta think that the Amy thing is some sort of weird media accident, and that the Bernie thing is just that people are on the ground. I mean, somebody tweeted today
Well,
that they called every name on the Iowa list, and are starting over.
damn.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, like, Klobuchar is getting, the other
Warren runoff.
Biden, Buttigieg, Warren have had their media push and played out and fizzled like it didn't last, and now Klobuchar is the last one to get that. It's not going to do her any good ultimately. But
she got the New York Times co-endorsement bump.
yeah, that's great. Funny enough, actually, on the Real Clear average, every other candidate is up. So it's like those three, the real contenders, Biden, Buttigieg, and Warren, are trending down,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and everybody else is trending up. So like, what's fun? Those voters are switching to Yang, Steyer, Gabbard, a little, but really it's Bernie picking up most of it, obviously, because people are tuning in and we're making a difference. And we know we're going to be on the ground here for the next week, so basically it's going to be a blowout. Like
I didn't talk to one Biden supporter, did you?
Oh fuck, I did not meet a single Biden person. No.
Did you go to any homes?
It's crazy.
Did you go to any old folks' homes?
No. Yeah, that is one constituency I didn't visit.
What about Yang Gang? Did you see the Yang Gang while you're out there?
They had signs.
I met some people who were like undecided and whose top choice was Yang, but like I'm talking like middle-aged, like working class people out in these small towns, like who were like, yeah, man, that who had real like thoughtful things to say about getting $1,000 extra a month, about its effect in their lives and on the economy. But like one guy was telling me, like, if I had that extra $1,000 a month, not only I'd be spending it in the economy, but I'd be paying down my daughter's student loans. And I'm like, well, let me stop you right there.
I got a better idea.
I could get if I had $1,000 a month. I could buy healthcare.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's pretty easy. Like, once you get on the ground and talk to people, it's super fucking easy to dismantle any other campaign's shit. Like, again, for the more like tuned in people, it's really mostly comes down to fucking electability. If they're undecided at this point, if they're a left Democrat, who's like anywhere, Buttigieg, Warren, Biden, whatever. But for everybody else, they may have some niche boutique thing that turned them on about one of the candidates or something that is just like pales, man. Like, you're gonna be a lot fucking richer under Sanders than you are under the fucking Yang plan. Like,
but yeah, and the electability thing. Like once they mention electability, you just transition into the fact that Bernie has the most volunteers. Bernie's got the most individual donors from working people. He's got the movement that can beat Trump. Done.
Yeah. And I go into the actual statistics. The polls the last year to dismantle what they've heard. Because if you're on this electability kick, it's because you've heard it from trickling down from the New York Times and MSNBC. And it's like, you just start at the beginning. You'd be like, listen, Bernie did better against Trump in polls in the 2016 primary than Hillary Clinton did. Like, this is not new information. We know this. He always beats Trump in these polls.
So yeah, I mean, Andrew Yang's like bizarre popularity, despite being the world's like least charismatic man, really is this like humorous honestly, like insult to the Democratic Party in the fact that they've just never offered anybody anything before. Literally, this guy who like can barely talk when a camera's on him is like, I'll give you $1,000 a month, and everybody's like, yeah, I like that guy. I like him more than the person who spent $1 billion on ads during every football game that I've had to watch.
Yeah, and why shouldn't they?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's right. Like, Democrats would call this some sort of like deep political magic or something that like, oh yeah, you can get anybody to like you by offering them things,
Yeah, I mean, it's, exactly.
Truly fantastic. Well, do you guys have any other Iowa stories you want to give us as we sort of wrap up here?
Yeah, I can give you one. So I think we were talking earlier about, getting the C2Cs, the commit to caucuses. I think Greg and I think we both probably got like every day, like at least one or two commit to caucuses, from people that had never caucused before. And I probably got like, honestly, like I would just be walking down the street with my, my Bernie shirt on, all my lit and stuff in my jacket pockets and like canvass people on the street and get C2Cs that way. Like there was one time even in Iowa, like I went to the Starbucks in a strip mall. I was wearing an Iowa for Bernie shirt. The barista there is like, "Hey, I like Bernie." I'm like, "Cool, yeah." She's like, "Yeah, I like your shirt." I ended up like chatting her up. She had never caucused before. She likes Bernie. We talked for a little bit. She was like, she didn't think she wanted to caucus because, I don't know, people would be mean to her or something. I told her to tell them to fuck off. And she eventually did commit to caucus, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I can see how like the caucusing process would be intimidating. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is like, those people you love to yell at online, do it in person.
Yeah. And then there was this other kid like who I came across like walking down the street, I think in Webster City. Greg was knocking doors there too. And it was kind of like Webster City is not a place where you would find any like, hipster like stoner kids, but he was kind of like a hipster like stoner kids. He was like, "Hey, wait, you're knocking doors for Bernie? I love Bernie." And so, we get to chatting. He didn't know what a caucus was. He just liked Bernie and wanted him to win. He had no idea that Iowa caucuses were happening in 8 days. So I hooked him up with some Bernie lit. I got his address. And I delivered him a yard sign, and then we got to be talking then. And I said, "Hey, you should commit to caucus with us." And he kind of like it took a little bit of convincing, and possibly a little bribery, which maybe you should cut this. But basically, he was like, "Well, I would love a Bernie shirt. Like, do you think you could get your contacts or something?" Like, he thought I worked on the campaign.
Oh yeah.
So he kind of just said like, "Hey, like, get a shirt delivered to my address." And
well, he knows that you guys are in like a giant bunkhouse, and that Bernie, Father Bernie comes in every night to talk to you guys while you're in your sort of white linens.
Well, we are in the hot couch Bernie bunkhouse for sure. But anyway, basically, he was like, "Oh, I would love a Bernie shirt," and I was like, "Okay, listen, Jack. If you put on, if you commit to this caucus, I will give you this Bernie shirt off my back that has been in the same room as Bernard Sanders."
Oh, wow.
So that kid better fucking caucus. He better be a precinct captain because I've hooked him up.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, there you go.
Shirt off your back.
Yeah. Bernie supporters. That's what they do.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that we saw AOC and Bernie Sanders mere feet away from us.
And Michael Moore too.
Yeah, Michael Moore. Yeah.
He was on my flight too.
Oh wow,
that's funny.
Wait, was Michael Moore in first class or was he riding coach?
No, he was in coach. He sat behind me. Yeah.
Oh wow,
the real man.
That is the man of the people right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have leaned back and be like, "Dude, nobody's gonna fault you for getting in first class. Dude, it's fine."
Well, and then there are people like chatting them up about their like healthy habits or healthy like food club or something, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, it's all this person over there."
Well, that's great. So is AOC there then whipping up people? Is she going to be sort of helping
they were
to whip up the Bernie
all
fervor?
over the state. No, yeah, they were in like all weekend. They were in several places every day, like doing rallies, and that's the other way I think. Like, if you want to know how this caucus is going to go down, like the Saturday night rally for Bernie was a fucking blowout. It was like the biggest auditorium that they had in this mid-sized town. Was this the one in Ames, maybe? And
for Ames.
or Perry, was it? I don't know which one of those. Yeah, it was Ames.
Yeah.
And it was packed to the gills, standing room only, with, they said, like at least 1,000 people outside who couldn't get in. And
Mhm.
the photos are like wild, and there's photos of the war. It looks like a general election event,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like something for this weird little thing that a few people apparently show up to. And the Warren event the same night was like, looked like the VFW hall on a Wednesday night, like, and approaching a please clap scenario.
Well, and I think that's how it's kind of always been at these kind of things. And I would say that like part of the reason why another reason why the DNC hates Bernie is because he gets people all like riled up and all that kind of stuff. That's not their game. They're like, no, don't get people riled up, because then they'll ask for things. All right?
Well,
like,
it is the nature of
we
the
want
Iowa
people to be
caucus.
chided into us voting for us. Yeah.
Well, this is the nature of this weird the Democratic Party. It has built a lot of its process around sort of keeping people disinterested and out of the nomination process, but in ways that ultimately are easy to game and backfire. So since the Iowa caucus has been like a meaningful thing, in the last several decades, it's been intentionally kept, I guess, this very niche thing that almost nobody does, which means, um, it for that reason can skew toward wealthier, older people who are, more established, more in line with establishment conservative Democrat politics. And, and then it sends a signal for the rest of the nomination process, but by the same token, the that's easily gamed. All you have to do is go out and appeal to people, and that's why they fucking hate Bernie Sanders, because he's doing this thing that, it's not actually that hard. You just go out and get people involved, and we're just going to storm into their private little fucking party.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, going out and appealing to people, though, for Democrats, I mean, that's like, you might as well be a wizard casting a fucking spell or something. Like, that's cheating again.
Yeah.
The real way to win is by being as unappealing as possible, but then forcing people to vote for you.
That's
Well,
leadership.
they also don't want people to put pressure on them. They just want to do what they want to do.
Yeah, well, if Bernie ends up winning in Iowa, the shit's really gonna hit the fan, because they're all gonna start worrying about that like healthcare industry, like spigot of money turning off that's been just raining money on them for decades.
Oh, and
they're gonna go nuts.
I just checked, something on Facebook that was posted by Cassidy. It's that those doors we knocked the other day, and we delivered like door knockers with the caucus precinct on them. They have the Democrats have moved the location of the caucus for those two precincts. So
wow.
So basically, so we're doing get out the caucus at this point. This is GOTC, where we're telling people their caucus location for each precinct. We're even leaving lit that has it and saying, like, keep this. This is the address. This is the time. And what do you know? They changed a shitload of them, including the ones this weekend, including the precincts Justin and I walked. And again, it's just caucus suppression. It is to keep people, so people show up, because you have a fucking narrow window. You got to get in line, and then they shut down the line at 7:00. And so you're not even going to know you're in the wrong fucking place till you get to the front of the line. Most people, right?
Yeah.
So this is just a way to tell people to fuck off. So you're going to get people showing up who we've convinced to come out for the first fucking time, who are going to show up and be told to, get back out on the street. You don't get to be a part of this. And it's just fucking disgusting. But, this is what you can expect from the Democratic Party. And this is going to happen for the rest of the fucking primary. They're going to pull fucking dirty tricks. This is rat fucking time. And it's going to come directly from every fucking Democrat in the country.
Yeah, it's just like in 2016, the fix is going to be in, and the only way you can sort of defeat that is sort of with a tidal wave of support. Luckily, Webb and Bernard Sanders can actually get that done. So,
Yeah.
speaking of support, though, because I kind of like to wrap up here, but I want to bring up one thing that's actually happening in Seattle since we're doing a Seattle Sucks podcast, which is this Wednesday, workers at Swedish Hospital are going on strike, motherfucker.
Hell yeah. Let's build those working class movements.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of give you guys just a few lines from this article from The Stranger by our good buddy and guy who supports everything we say on the show, Rich Smith, which is called "To Prep for Strike." Swedish hires scabs and tactical security with body cameras.
Motherfuckers.
Oh, God.
So, as Washington State confirms the country's first case of Wuhan coronavirus, 8,000 Swedish caregivers responsible.
Still don't know what that is.
Yep, I think okay. Was Swedish caregivers responsible for treating patients and disinfecting hospital rooms are barreling toward a massive 3-day strike scheduled for Wednesday. Though caregivers say they don't want to strike, bosses at Swedish, which was recently acquired by Providence, are telling staff they don't plan to return to the bargaining table before the union's January 28th deadline.
Yeah.
Now, this is all over the hospital workers who have been fucked in their last contract, won a 6% raise per year over the course of the contract, to which Swedish is basically saying, at best, we'll give you 3%, which, of course, in Seattle is not even a cost of living adjustment.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting a key sentence there was that they were bought in the last few years by, was it Prudential that you said?
Providence.
Because Providence. I don't remember the details, but Swedish has been previously, like in decades past, like a extremely well regarded medical institution in the community, and I think their model was something like I think they may have been some kind of profit or cooperative, at least at some point in the past, like a lot of like good medical institutions, and it's just sort of everything's gone to shit since they were sold to some massive for-profit company. Again, I don't remember the details exactly, but yeah, this is what Bernie's out here talking about, is building working class movements of people who are willing to stand up and in solidarity and fight for what's right. And this is great because if this strike happens, and if it's successful, and in that they get a lot of their people out in the streets and make some noise, and even more so if they actually get some of what they're asking for, that's going to be a great stress test for January, February 2020, when President Bernie Sanders is asking all of us, and especially people in medical unions, to stand up and demand that the shitty conservative Congress pass Medicare for all.
Yeah, and let's be clear here. So Providence is a Catholic, quote-unquote, nonprofit, which, is a typical scam in hospitals. Compensates its 16 executives to the tune of $41 million in salary. That probably doesn't include other little benefits. And the thing is that Swedish just dropped $11 million on 5-day contracts with scabs that will effectively lock out striking caregivers from 2 days of work. The hospital has also hired as many as 200 tactical security guards with body cameras. So they got the money.
Real 200.
Yeah.
200. Dude, that's like, I mean, that's some strike breaker shit. That's some full on Pinkerton shit, man. Like, that is fucking terrifying. That's going to be a real fucking showdown.
Isn't Swedish kind of strategically? I mean, I know they're hiring scabs, but aren't they strategically kind of choosing to shut down certain departments? Like, what's going on with that?
Oh, I'm sure they are. I mean, this is like a very typical sort of move to do if you're coming up on a strike, right? Is to try and figure out where the strike support's strongest and then go through and like
make
shut
them
the
look
departments
bad.
down and things like that.
Well, but also for the purpose of, especially in like think of the way that school boards and cities guilt teachers when they strike for leaving the
Oh, yeah.
kids with nowhere to go, times a million for healthcare workers who are asked day and day and decade over decade to have their like falling wages and benefits and more work hours and just overwhelmingly increased productivity because of understaffing, while administration salaries rise, and they're going to be blamed for lack of care when they finally stand up, and they're going to be vilified as leaving their patients behind, which is something that anytime you talk to healthcare workers, is the whole reason they're doing this is to help people in their time of need. And striking healthcare workers always, are very conflicted about leaving their patients in these
Yeah.
times. But
Well,
this is, and this is going to be used against them, and it's going to be
when
used
it's one of
against them in the
those
media.
Yeah, and it's something that's like worth bringing up because one of the things that the healthcare workers are demanding is, more people on shift and things like that, which would, I think, in everybody's mind, provide better care. Swedish is demanding less, right? So part of going on strike is actually to provide better care.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. Yes.
we can't count on the Seattle Times getting that out, though. So that will require, people actually going out and supporting. So if you have time, you should go out to the picket lines. Our beloved listeners go out to the picket lines on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I know that DSA, the Downtown Seattle Association, which Justin is a member of, board member of, but yeah, the actual Seattle DSA is supporting and doing some events too, and people should look into that. But yeah, support striking hospital workers. Come on now.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Good luck out there on the picket line, fellas.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think maybe we should bring this a little bit to a close by one, thanking Justin Roll for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug, or a Twitter account you want to plug, or anything like that?
I don't know if I want to recommend anybody to follow my Twitter account because
you don't have to.
I'll post about politics and Bernie, but I'll also post about like my pooping habits and things like that. So it's not for everyone. If you find my Twitter, you'll find it. Just gotta look.
I hear you. I once told people on Twitter I was going to stop bathing to fight gentrification, so I get it. But all right. Well, dude, Justin Roll, look for him in the world. If you see him,
thanks for coming on, and thanks for being out here in Iowa, and sharing a bedroom with me. I'm sorry for my random shouting in the night and other strange oddities of sharing a room with me.
The middle of the night, Greg was like, "Fuck, shit, what the fuck."
That's just normal. I didn't even have. I had to warn everybody about my possible night terrors, but they didn't even happen. So that's nothing. That's when I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, running around like slamming into walls, like then there's something to talk about.
But yeah, I guess the main thing I'll plug is just volunteer for Bernie. This is. Maybe, hopefully not, but it might be, once in a lifetime shot that, that we have to do something big. So, do Bernie phone banks. A lot of people are hosting them. Go to map.berniesanders.com. DSA is also doing a lot of cool stuff around Bernie. We're doing, canvases every weekend. We're doing phone banks every Tuesday. And our watch parties are a lot of fun, even though the debates are pretty shitty. You can just have fun, meet people, chat.
You need to watch those debates in a group. You can't watch
exactly.
That's the recipe for madness.
Yeah.
Ideally in a group setting where it's too loud to even hear them. which is how the DSA
which
does
is
it.
most of our watch party. We've gotten better. Well, more like we have started hosting our debate watch parties at the Clockout Lounge, which knows how to do AV instead of our like DIY, bullshit.
Yeah, I get the sound working.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, and for those of you out there, you can download the Burn app to your phone. You can also bother on Twitter, friends of the show, Sean Scott and Maddie at Father Queerist, who are doing organizing for Bernie in the area. If you're interested, definitely bug them about it. Well, we'd like to thank a new blessed patron to the fold, Matt. Just Matt, no last name. That's okay. Once you're with us, you don't have a name anyways. You're just a sucker, and that's okay. So thanks for signing up.
Yeah. Again, prayers up. Everybody should be praying to get Colin's soul out of limbo and into hell.
It might be a good place.
Yeah.
It's a good place for Colin. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, he doesn't like cold weather. So that being said, I guess we'll see you guys next week, and bye.
Yeah, see ya. Bye, everybody.
See ya.